I'm going to move an extension of time. We have a second. Councillor Simpson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
No, was that? No choice.
Extension of time.
Extension of time. We've
I
had
thought
6
you're
hours.
trying to work a fasting there.
Still okay to second? Just in case.
The disposals report.
I'll move the recommendation.
It's a changed name. Changed name.
Okay.
I don't know about change.
So just before you start, Tisha, Marion, and sorry, introduce.
Corey Barker from Legal Services.
Okay, yeah, hi, Corey. So what we've got here, we've been working quite hard to work our way around these issues. So we've got a changed recommendation for the Manukau property, and you'll see there is a new, let me get this quite clear, a new F. Okay? Just take this slowly, this is important. So if you look in A, whether you're doing it on the screen or in your papers, in the first line, approved subject to the satisfactory conclusion of any required statutory
Can't see A,
process.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. A. Okay.
A is on the agenda, isn't it?
Okay. It's in your papers, but it's on, okay, so the key words there, to the satisfactory conclusion of any required statutory processes. Okay. We have added a new F that we believe, and this follows advice from the legal department, where it says, note the following consultation, a further report will be brought to F&P for Council's final decision under the Reserves Act as to whether to revoke the reserve status, which, if approved, would then clear the way for Panuku's sale negotiations as noted above. Okay, that is what we say is closing the loop, okay?
Move.
Now, Panuku's happy with this, legal's happy with this.
Consultation with whom?
That means we have to go through those statutory processes to our satisfaction. And as you know, what the big thing here that we're all concerned about is the transparency.
Excuse me,
Okay.
consultation with whom on F?
Under the reserves.
Through the chair, public consultation is undertaken as part of the Reserves Act process,
Following-
reserve revocation process.
Following public consultation.
Oh, sorry, it's not in there, okay.
The public.
Oh, okay. Oh, we put it, okay. All right, now, in effect,
You're using the Reserves Act to try
the
and hold
second
it.
Safari Group or the Second Nature Trust would say, well, this, we've already got a timeline and this was going to upset the whole program, etc., etc. I think I'll just remind you of yesterday when the Safari Group presented to us as part of the key stakeholder that they basically said, along with 2 other hotel developers, that pretty well all the projects are on hold subject to the June decision on the accommodation targeted rate. So I don't think it's really going to delay anything big time, because I've already said it's going to be delayed because there are too many issues and probably it's going to kill off projects. All right?
I'll move.
So we have a mover and a seconder
Can
to
we
that
just-
part.
Can we just go through, can we just take
Yep.
the, sorry, to be
So basically,
slow?
it,
Yep,
A, B, C and D are in your report.
yep, yep.
Okay.
And you just added that
And
other
E,
one, okay.
and we've added a new F. And this has been on the advice of the legal department. This is the appropriate way to handle it. We thought we had a different way of handling it, and Councillor Newman has got some recommendations, which is a different way again.
How can I, look,
So-
can I ask a couple of
Yeah,
questions?
no, we're coming to explanation of this one, and I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Filipina?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore are going to move and second A, B, C, D, E, F.
We've still got questions.
Then we're going to move to the new G, okay, which is followed up. Sorry, are we on the right one? Warkworth. So a new G, which has been proposed initially by Councillor Sayers. he has agreed to us amending a little bit within it of that initial G, and then we've added, I'm struggling to see what's behind it, H and I, which the staff have added. Councillor Sayers is going to move those three in a block, and you have a seconder?
Oh, second. Oh, did you?
I'll second that. Okay, I'll second that. I'll second those three resolutions, which relate to the Walkworth property, and then we have a new, instead of the old G, has become a J, and do we want Councillor Collins and Councillor Filipaina to move that?
Which one is
That's in your area, isn't it? Papatoetoe?
J? Yep.
Yep. Right, we have movers and seconders. We're going to do it in three blocks. Questions, Councillor Newman?
It's gone through the legal board.
Mr. Chair, can someone from legal confirm that the reason why we have to sell from, as a leaseor, we have to sell to the leasee this piece of land is because this piece of land is currently leased to the leasee, and therefore it is treated differently to the land that has previously been subject to judicial review?
Through the chair, I can confirm that no sale of this piece of land can occur without agreement with the lessee.
So we're just going back to that new resolution then.
Which one?
F, yep.
What public consultation are you, why are we embarking on a new round of consultation here?
Reserve safety.
Just the Reserves Act process?
Yes, through the chair, public consultation is a requirement in the revoking of a reserve under the Reserves Act 1977.
Okay, so A1 is just setting the process for the revocation, but then it has to come back. Why wasn't this in the original recommendations?
It is.
No, I'm talking about the new resolution
Oh,
that
right,
ties it
yeah,
all
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Why wasn't it
Well,
included in the first?
I don't know whether it's appropriate to go on a witch hunt on this, because look,
I'll go on
we've
a
already
witch hunt,
delayed
I mean.
this once, and it was the chair and myself in consultation with Ms. Tyndall that we pulled it from the last year. We've been working quite hard to work this through, including phone conversations last night I had with Panuku, just trying to see how we can keep working this through. For many, I think we've come to a good place, a good spot, and that's all I can say, Councillor Newman.
So you don't know why it wasn't there, but we should just accept it?
Well, we all learn as we go along, don't we?
Through the chair, our usual practice is to seek the support of the governing body or the approval of the governing body to commence the reserve revocation process, so that we're not acting on behalf of council for something that this governing body does not agree with. So we want to ensure the governing body agrees with us undertaking the reserve revocation process before we commence the consultation process.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, the outstanding question I've got is why we wouldn't effectively sell it direct, and why we have to go through this process to...
Corey's just already answered that, but Corey, can you just reiterate?
No, that doesn't answer my question. I understand that it was said that we need the agreement of the leasee. That was what I wrote down, agreement of the leasee. That does not mean that we're not in a position to be able to sell it to some party other than the lessee, effectively selling it direct and getting the best price we can on an open market.
Through the chair, if we're to carve off this part, it is leased to the lessee, and we would be unable to remove that leasehold interest without the agreement of the tenant.
But surely, I mean, what's the issue with getting the agreement of the tenant? Why don't we do that?
Through the chair, I suspect we could ask, but the tenant has already entered into an agreement for this area of land with Safari that contemplates it being carved off from its demise and then sold on to Safari.
I understand all of that. Having said that, surely that's a rather complicated arrangement.
Yep.
I would have thought it would have been simpler for us to get the agreement of the lessee, and under normal circumstances, I would have thought that's what we would have done, and then simply sold it, and sold it direct to Safari or the like. I would have thought that was the simpler and cleaner way of dealing with it.
Again, through the chair, the tenant already started this process before coming to council, so had actually already signed up to the agreement with the developer, and so that's already in place. If the tenant were willing to surrender its interest and not complete the agreement, then council could sell that off, but it's entered into an agreement for value with the developer, who is obviously invested in this already as well.
Okay, so you're saying that there's been an agreed price already?
I understand that is the case. We haven't seen a full copy of the agreement.
Councillor Walker, it's not a perfect situation, but as you know, for example, you can actually apply for a resource consent over some land you don't even own, so it's not,
Well,
it's a bit of a,
I guess my particular concern goes to the matter that the local board chair raised, which is around transparency. I mean, this is news to me that there's already an agreement in place and there's a price. There's the matter of where the money's going to go and whether there is still another process that might be cleaner as far as council is concerned and bring the money to our purse directly.
Marion, could you?
Through you, Chair. Panuku has taken a practical approach to this transaction. We've treated this proposal in the same manner that we would any other ground lease situation. In financial terms, Panuku seeks to unlock the value, obtain the benefit of the uplift in value, and enable the proceeds of sale to be directed back into a local amenity in the community. A good example of this would be the upgrade of the Puanui stream. In addition to that, Panuku would seek to ensure that any future development on that site is prohibited through encumbering the title to ensure that the proposed development, any proposed development outside the existing envelope is restricted. We would also look to ensure other outcomes like ensuring that any proposal is commenced in a timely manner so that we don't face a land banking issue in the future.
Okay, so I understand that. So did Panuku know that this deal was being cut on the part of this entity in advance, and that there was a deal being struck around the amount and so on? Is Panuku party to that effectively?
Again, through the chair, no, Panuku wasn't party to that agreement. The trust has been upfront from the get-go with respect to the fact that they do want a hotel on that site. They haven't shared the details of the agreement. However, it is worth pointing out that it is common practice in the Auckland market today that people enter into conditional agreements in order to get the desired outcomes that they wish. So we understand that the conditions are, subject to council approval and revocation process.
I understand that, but having said that, this is an unusual arrangement where it's a lessee that's effectively entering into an agreement for sale. That's what I have difficulty with. And the sale is effectively on the part of council, whether it be Panuku or whoever. So it's rather odd as far as I'm concerned.
It's common practice.
No, it's not common practice.
I think this was.
It's not common practice for a lessee
Councillor Walker,
to sell a property.
are you asking, are you commenting or
Is
asking
it common practice for a lessee to sell a property?
No, it isn't. It isn't, through the chair. It's not. So therefore, Panuku has taken a practical approach to this matter to try and achieve a fair market value for council's interest here, to get an equal benefit in the uplift of the value from the development, and to achieve the other non-financial outcomes I outlined earlier.
So just to extend the question then, so practical approach, as I take it, is accepting that the horse is bolted, that there's been an unusual transaction, and let's just go with it then. That's the practical approach then, is it?
Through the chair, both parties need to agree to a way forward. Yes, the trust has entered into an agreement with a third party, and Panuku views its role in this as getting, as I said, a fair market value for the council, and any uplift or benefit in that value, an equal benefit.
Well, just through you, Mr. Chair, and again, this is not a question, but it's just stating that I would hope that we don't have a continuation of these sorts of practices going forward. I think this is highly irregular, and I'm just putting my very real concern on the table.
Letitia, did you
I
want to-
reserve my speaking rights later. Thank you.
Letitia, do you want to comment?
I was just going to follow up on Marion's point, Mr. Chair, and note that this piece of land is currently of low value because of the reserve status and the lease over the land, and very little public amenity is being provided to the local community as it stands. We at Panuku saw the proposal, while we do appreciate the concerns that have been raised by Member Walker and by others, we saw this proposal as an opportunity to actually realise some value for council from this piece of land and obtain a benefit for the local community.
Because one also needs to be aware that this whole lease area is within the Transform Manukau zone, where the money will be back into the area, so we need to be quite clear about that, okay? It's called optimisation. I still struggle with why it's called that, but anyway. And Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, notwithstanding that Second Nature Trust have entered into an agreement with a hotel for land that they don't own or is actually a reserve or have a legal obligation to enter an agreement, I think it's important for this council to keep our business open and transparent and fair. So my questions are around the advice and the resolutions that the Manarewa local board put, because they said in theirs, the advice that they were given, obviously on Thursday night last week, is that they noted that in the interest of full transparency and to avoid flipping, you know, because that's the concern that a lot of people have, that they supported the land sale by Panuku to an open market or bid process. Are you now saying that actually it can't be open market? It has to be to them. Is that correct?
Through the chair, again, this comes back to the point that no sale can be achieved without the tenant's agreement. So if you take it to the open market, you still need the tenant to agree to the actual sale because it's part of their demise. And given that they've signed up to an agreement for a development there already and actually have an interest in this, it would seem highly unlikely that they would agree to a sale to a third party with obviously achieving their own interests in it.
So we don't have any choice. So we have a leasee that's leased reserve land that's asking for a revocation so that they can sell to a particular hotel. They've already done the deal, but it's a stalemate, isn't it? If we don't reverse the reserve status, they can't do what they want to do. And I think everybody, well, the people that I've spoken to are kind of keen for something to happen there in the hotel and the money to be invested in Manukau. I think all those right intentions are there. What isn't there is an open, transparent process that this council has led to a point that it could be any hotel. I mean, it's Safari Group, okay, it's Safari Group, but what say another group came with a better deal that had a better investment back? We don't know that. And so we've got a situation where the deal's all ready to run. They're just waiting for the reserve status to be revoked. How do we, there's nothing we can do, is there? There's nothing we can do to actually make it more open and transparent. Sorry, my question is there anything we can do? Because I can't see another way, I can't see another out of it. And I think what you're trying to do here in F is to have another sort of a layer to try and give a little bit more transparency, but the bottom line is that this is flipping, pardon the pun, wrong in so many counts. But legally, we don't have any choice.
I'll speak to not the choice, but the transparency. The legal contracts is between the Second Nature Trust and its developer, and we have asked, and they have relied upon confidentiality agreements within those contracts, and also, a commercial deal that's been reached between those parties. So we have no oversight or no input on that agreement. The agreement that we do have or that we can have control over, is the agreement between council and Second Nature for the sale of the land.
So the transparency is that we can say to them, yes, you can sell the land. Can we say, if we revoke the reserve status, can we say, yes, you can sell the land, but you can only sell it once? What sort of caveats can we put on just to protect somebody making a lot of money from a deal that has very low worth because it's a reserve?
Through the chair, we probably couldn't put one on, say you can only sell it once, because that would have an impact upon funding. But as Marion has already said, it's standard practice for Panuku when they enter into development agreements, is that we encumber the land as a first charge to ensure the outcome. So that encumbrance would flow through Second Nature to the developer when they on-sell it, and that would ensure that the developer has to do a development as we understand is contemplated and within a time frame that we understand it. And if that was not achieved, then there would be an option there for council to, in effect, take that land back.